that Lee Sin was not banned out. He has been a high priority, but the other jungler that really has found form in the current times is Jarvan.
Yeah, Jarvan's come back with a vengeance here, and it's been Jarvan, Lee Sin, and Rengar a lot on this most recent patches, so having him locked in straight away is not too surprising at all. It doesn't reveal too much about the way you want your comp to go, but in fact, they immediately respond with a Lucian Janna bot lane.
Yeah, and this is because Corki is not available here. Something we saw in OGN is first pick Corki in a lot of games this past weekend, so with Corki not available, Lucian is the next best AD carry, and alongside Janna is an incredibly strong lane.
So Sona is something I saw back come with the Vengeance yesterday. Caitlyn, however, not been on the playfield for a long time.
Yeah, Caitlyn has always been there, but never really played because she's kind of just being consistent, always has the range in lane over Lucian. So what that does is it kind of prevents a lot of the trading that is going to take place in the lane just because of how far the two marksmen are going to be from each other. Tie into that the Sona with the added sustain in lane. Janna Lucian may have a bit of trouble actually harassing in the lane, but Lucian's always going to be strong.
There's that other small thing which a lot of people overlook with Sona because she has the heals and she has the crescendo and the power chords for lane harass, but she has a movement speed boost ability. I mean, you've got a Jarvan engage who puts so much distance when he looks for something. Having that little burst of speed on the rest of your team to help close the gap can really help him stay alive in a couple of situations. We do get a couple of instant swaps then from Faculty, Ahri, and there is that Lee Sin as their jungle counter.
Yeah, with Ahri in this lineup, although they don't have Corki, we're kind of shaping towards somewhat of a composition that's very good at wave clear, very good in front of towers with siege. Lee Sin doesn't exactly fit that. That's more the pick aspect there that allows you that siege potential. But depending on their top laner, which Xaxis is holding on to because they're trying to bait out a heavy AP pick here so that Xaxis can then pick up one of his counter picks that we know he has been playing. He's playing a lot of Kassadin into the likes of Lissandra and Victor. So they're waiting to give Xaxis his final pick here.
Yeah, we've seen more and more teams, of course. A lot of teams think that red side has that strength in the pick ban because of that last pick. And with bottom lanes now becoming such a passive central 2v2 that's happy to sit there on their own, with jungle becoming less and less of an impact as people start to figure it out and have so many more wards, top lane really is what everyone expects to see go one way or the other and swing games. So to have that last pick, counter pick top lane is great. There is a Maokai and an Orianna as the last two. Are we going to see this Kassadin?
We maybe will see it. Kassadin into Maokai, something we've seen in OGN, did fairly well, but typically hasn't been what Xaxis is picking into. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Rumble here. That has done very well, and when you're against a heavy engage composition that that Tricked have here, you look at Jarvan, Sona,
one other champion that is not on the ban list and could be picked against that Maokai that Caitlyn has a tough time against, Irelia.
Yeah, that would be what we've seen a lot of. I'm hoping that Xaxus plays something different, and there it is. This is what we were doing a bit of research on Xaxus about, and Kassadin, in the laning phase, does struggle. Every Kassadin matchup pretty much is like that up until 6, so jungle pressure post pre-6 is very important for Tricked here.
So first thing I see for Tricked, Orianna, Caitlyn, Maokai, those three champions love long drawn-out games.
Yeah.
What are in faculty aiming to do? What's their main objectives here to make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, their main objective here, or their main tool that they're going to have to utilize, is their mobility here. You look at every champion on their lineup has some sense of an escape, a gap close, just a way to cross a lot of distance very quickly here. And they're going to have to use that mobility to kind of stop Tricked from grouping and pick them off before they can get that massive teamfight composition going.
Okay, so there are all 10 of your champions and all 6 of your bans, of course. And Faculty and Tricked, two very closely matched teams, I think. We talked about how Challenger goes backwards and forwards over and over again, but still, these two teams, I'm expecting a full 3-game series. And of course, guys, you can get involved using the hashtag LCS Expansion and tweeting to us at LOL eSports to let us know your thoughts on the game, your thoughts on the teams. Have any favorite players? Have any favorite champions? Who do you want to see in the LCS throughout the whole course of this expansion tournament, right up until it finishes, of course, in a couple of months or a couple of weeks' time?
I was going to say, it's not quite that long a road to LCS. I mean, the road to LCS will be quite long for whoever doesn't get through the expansion tournament, because they have to go all the way through Challenger in Spring Split again, and that is a long road.
Long way down the train. And we've seen teams like Gamers 2 already wait a couple of coach splits to try and make their way in, to try and get in. This is a big deal for those guys, or they've got to wait another entire 6-month Spring Split, which is a long, drawn-out, painful wait, watching 2 other teams sit where you want to be. But we are just about in. You can hear it on your screens. We just get the colorblind settings changed on. And
there we go.
There it is on your screens. Tricked eSports are your blue team down in the bottom left-hand corner of this map, and in Faculty, the red squad, up in the top right-hand corner. Level 1. A lot of the teams at the moment now, because everyone is used to these deep invades, these deep wars, looking at positioning, and we've seen the falling off of lane swaps, seem to be happy just guarding the entrances to their jungle and waiting for that jungle spawn. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy, just happy to sit back for a minute and out.
Yeah, the most aggressive thing we saw was, I believe, a play into the bottom side jungle out from Ascension yesterday, but they only got a couple of wards down, didn't really get too much from that, other than information, which is always good to have if you can get the information of where the enemy jungler starts. However, as you alluded to, very passive start.
Yeah. We will occasionally see teams obviously wait until about that minute mark, because these wards will only last that full minute, and maybe group up for a deep ward on the enemy red buff just to keep track of that jungler. But again, nothing like that this time around, just edging into the entrance of the other jungle, quicker death bushes in the river, and nothing more so than that. But where are the junglers both starting? Lee Sin is on his red, and Jarvan actually recalled away from that blue to go down to his own one. So opposite ends of the map for the two junglers.
And I like this start out of Maweth here on Jarvan, because we already talked about at the start of Champion Select how with Kassadin in a lane matchup in top, you want to pressure him out. This gives Maweth a couple of options as they begin the game here. He could look for mid, which is a very standard timing on Jarvan. But if he looks for the top lane gank, they could be able to pressure out Kassadin very early on.
So in the bottom lane, actually, you can see the blue squad pairing staying very, very aggressive in this bush, looking for that early burst of damage to help gain lane dominance.
Yeah, and this is something we've seen pretty much out of teams ever since Worlds. This is something that so many of the games started this way, that Shiner here on Caitlyn down in the bottom lane. Caitlyn's pretty good at pushing anyway, so to get this good start here at level 1 should set them up fairly nicely for this lane.
That actually completely backfired. All their damage landed onto Janna's shield, and Sona came out on the back foot, so very nice start for Faculty, countering that obvious play.
But the minions are going in the favor of Tricked. That is one thing to look at. So they are looking for that level 2, and with Sona there, they can just sustain through any damage that's traded back to them. But Nico is going to take a while to get that. They need level 2 before that heal is available.
Yeah, he's just used one of his 2 potions as well. And while we're there, let's have a look down some of the other items these players will start with. Of course, Kassadin's got that Crystalline Flask. You've already mentioned how tough his early laning phase can be from time to time. But other than that, identical starts.
Yeah, so Kassadin picking up Flask up in this top lane is essentially so that he can trade against Babunia's health potions using Flask charges. Every time they trade, Kassadin uses the shield, absorbs a lot of the damage, and only has to use Flask charges, which are very gold efficient once you start using them compared to health potions. So once Maokai's out of lane with no health potions, it becomes a much easier lane for Kassadin.
So again, down on the bottom lane, yes, Tricked have managed to get that level 2 advantage did. And Jarvan, in fact, coming in the top lane through the Tribush, grabs in the manages to blow the flash on Xaxus, but he does get back to his turret safely with it.
Great early gank out there from Maweth. That was what we were saying. He has to pressure out this Kassadin early, and that is exactly what they did. Flash not available means Xaxus is forced now to try and freeze that wave under his tower.
Jarvan may, in fact, find Lee Sin here at the Wraith camp, drops a ward down, wasn't expecting to find him there, and did not want to take that fight. So does just back away with a little bit of vision, and of course can relay that to his team and help them keep track of where Lee Sin was going to be. I did want to mention how Tricked is so far pushed in that bottom lane without a ward in the Tribush and with a bare minimal lane river coverage with the ward they have got. And with the Lee Sin starting at that red buff, it put him down here for that start of the map. So that was a dangerous moment or two for them, but now that it's pushed away from their tower a little bit more, they can feel a bit safer.
Yeah, it's a little bit fortunate that they spotted Obvious on that ward that Maweth placed, because this was about the kind of time where you'd see a jungler start to head towards the bottom lane, and you already said they didn't really have it warded out, so given a little bit of an easier time here in this bottom lane matchup, but this is what we're expecting out of Caitlyn and Sona. There is a lot of poke, and Janna's sustain isn't really there.
Lee Sin just recalled and bought himself the Spirit Stone before Longswords.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways that you can go about starting Lee Sin. Typically, long swords early on gives you that better damage. This, to me, says that Obvious does not want to go aggressive on Maweth. Maweth is the one making the aggressive plays, but picking up a Sightstone is going to give him that better jungle sustain. But after picking it up, here comes an aggressive play. It doesn't quite fit with this playstyle.
No, very nice game sense coming out of Babunia there too. He didn't have a ward on that. Obvious, he was completely unspotted until getting into the river. But Maokai was turning around, backing up, making sure he was safe. There was a ping straight down from Soz Perfect onto Tyridus' ward after having that sense and getting that suspicion from Maokai that Lee Sin was top. Made sure he had that side of the map covered for himself. Maweth, though, looking for that invade again, looking to plant a similar ward to what he did before, and actually finds himself a pink ward, but is chased away by Obvious, who was once again at that Wraith camp. Yeah,
battle of the pink wards in this top side of the jungle, and Obvious looks like he wants to trade, but we've already talked about his items just not being there. This might not be the best trade.
No, Maweth still wants to go in and grab that pink. He did have Orianna roaming upwards, but takes so much damage from Obvious even without long swords, and in fact catches a sonic wave too. Lee Sin just keeping a little bit of an eye on him, but neither mid laner can quite make it in there to help them out. They are going to keep the fight going. Maweth has that flag and drag to get away, but Soz Perfect's taking a lot of damage from Tyridus. Tyridus might have gone in a bit on deep here. The exhaust has been used. Flash over the wall for Obvious and first blood, but now Maweth is still exposed. The sonic wave might just be off cooldown, but not quite in time. Maweth gets back to safety under tower.
Tyridus with a little bit of a strange position there, moved aggressively when Maweth was already forced out of the fight. They really should have just disengaged that, and they will get punished.
Maweth had to use his engage. He used that EQ combo to get into the fight, to get out of the fight, sorry, so he couldn't come back in and help Tyridus with it. All he'd have to do was flash in and die himself, so very poor miscommunication, and after all of that, it loses them the pink ward that begun it all.
Yeah, and this game is certainly all about the vision. This is a lot more wards than we've been seeing from other teams very early on. Take a look at the deep vision here on the lower jungle here for Tricked eSports. They've already got good wards here to track Lee Sin through. It's a shame he's not actually walking over them right now, but it will become a lot more useful as we head towards that second buff spawn in the next couple of minutes.
So we immediately see an item differential down here in the bottom lane, thanks to that early aggression and quick pushing from Shiner and Nico. Getting a pickaxe up over the double Doran's blade coming out of Faculty.
Yeah, and take into account that Caitlyn's going to get those headshots and also have the range advantage over Lucian. So her ability to force Cedrian out of this lane is going to get even stronger with that pickaxe. And I don't know how Mountain and Cedrian are going to play this without having it push into them all the time. And that really just does not let them contest anywhere else on the map. If they start to go towards a dragon, they've got a lot longer of a way to go.
However, slight saving grace from Faculty. They've kept that CS number very, very close, despite having to fight the turret for them for a long time. top lane. These trades are starting to get far more even, but Babunia definitely coming out on top this time around.
Yeah, and at this point, we've reached a very important part of the game. Xaxis is level 6, which means he's pretty much now ungankable in this matchup. And that means Obvious can't really do too much in the top lane, but he's going to try and look to stamp his authority on this mid lane instead, but can't really find the position to do so.
Yeah, he's looking for a couple of openings, but was spotted with some slightly deeper wards on his way towards that bush. And Mouth was nearby just in case he's gone in as well. So both these junglers now had a couple of rotations round. We do have a couple of longswords now on Lee Sin, and they're looking to try and make some kind of impact with it. First time they're going to half blue buffs off as well, but just before doing so, Salt Perfect actually dropped down and planted a ward at the enemy Wraith camp too, so starting to get some very aggressive deep wards in both halves of the jungle are either team.
And that really is not a surprise, but it is a good thing to see here in Challenger, because that's one of the areas that a lot of Challenger teams will actually kind of forego in the early game. They'll look for the very aggressive plays. They'll look to try and set up their compositions well, but warding can be lacking at times. And the fact that this game so far has been all about the vision control is a good sign to see here, especially for our Nordic East teams.
So, Jungler's looking for that impact. 9 minutes. Bottom lane very much in Tricked's favor. What do you think their next move is when it comes towards that dragon? This is normally when we start seeing these kind of games open up. When the lanes are going so even and even, when the junglers can't make that kind of impact, you go for that one big play in one lane, try and shove someone back to base or grab a kill, and then look for the dragon objective.
Yeah, and it's going to be the roam from Soz Perfect. You have to feel will lead to that. Ahri, after level 6, you want to try and get her into another lane or a lane kill in the mid. But if you can't get that, it kind of stalls out your game towards Dragon, and this is a lot of time being used by Obvious and Soz Perfect when Tyrannus' positioning is just too good. Tyrannus knows this could be coming and is very, very slowly just taking these last hits from the wave.
Yeah, using everything in max range.
Yeah.
Something's fishy here. He had a suspicion, and he did figure it right, just indeed. He also had Sona actually was very close by for the beginning of that. She roamed all the way up from the bottom half of the map, clearing wards in that river as she went, but still Tyrannus played it very cautiously despite having that crescendo presence nearby. And giving Caitlyn a bit of time to back off away too and get a little bit of a push coming in their favor.
And even though First Blood went over to End Faculty earlier on in this game, Tricked have actually held this to a fairly even standing, and that's a lot to do with that bottom lane. You can see just how much harass is being put down. Mid lane as well, look at the farm difference between Orianna and Ahri. Kind of expect Tyrannus to, soon start taking rates as well. So that farm gap could start opening up even more.
So let's talk Kassadin top. Now we talked about how the early matchup goes now that he's ungankable. Let's talk build. At the moment he's looking near identical to that Maokai he's up against, but they're going to have to start veering off in different directions soon. Where do you take top lane Kassadin? So
you start with that Rod of Ages, and then from that you end up building a lot of flat AP typically. It's not quite the tier build because that's for the later game. Top lane Kassadin, when we've seen Xaxis and a couple of other people play it, will go from the Rod of Ages, sometimes into a Rabadon's Death Cap, but there's a lot of mobility on this team. They've got to watch out for some kind of bot lane engage here.
We're looking at what you called out. Ahri is starting to roam down from that middle lane, very deep through the Tricked jungle, and Lee Sin's been here for a while now. This is what you called earlier. This is what I asked about for that dragon play. These two members of Tricked are very, very exposed. Mouth has been spotted by the Wraith camp thanks to these wards. They're pinging on him.
Could ult
over the wall. Target over the wall comes Soz Perfect. The charm does land. Sonic Wave comes in from Obvious. Another ult charge comes off. Waits for the last moment, and Obvious executes Mouth after the flash.
The Ahri roam works out exactly as planned, and that is what End Faculty really needed to pick their momentum back up in this game. It's going to be the dragon going across to End Faculty, and Mouth is having a little bit of trouble finding his footing in this game. 2-0 on Obvious is just taking away the jungle here from Mouth.
Nice pick up then for End Faculty, opening up that gold lead. They started off with that first blood kill. Now they're up to just over 1,000 gold, and that offsets the CS advantage that Orianna and Caitlyn have got over their lane partners. Wow. It sits them quite nicely. But we do see the top laners, now they know where junglers are, of course, getting that bit more aggressive with each other.
Yeah, but Xaxis traded badly against Babunia there. The whole thing on Kassadin top lane is that you want to get 5 points in your shield as much as possible and preempt the damage that is going to come from your laning opponent. And Babunia went in when Xaxis had his shield unavailable and pretty much took about 1/3 of his health off in that engage. That is not what Xaxis really wants here.
So, do see, of course, those catalysts, and then still got a crystalline flask on Zazas to help him regen as best he can. And I do believe he's currently out of stacks on it too, so he's got to wait for that level up to get any of that health back. Slight saving grace for him, though, is that Babunya's lacking the mana, and he's got Obvious nearby. But Obvious is standing on a ward. You must realize this from Babunya's play, or at least suspect it, because as soon as he walked into that bush, Babunya turned and tail and ran. Do now see Mouth back down in the bottom half of the jungle too, doing his own red buff. But there's no opening for him on this bottom lane with complete wards on the river from Janna and in that tri-bush.
Now, Cedrian is pushing quite hard in this bottom lane, which is a little uncharacteristic when you take into account he's playing against a Caitlyn, who is normally very good at pushing the lane out. But I have a feeling this is Tricked actually allowing the End Faculty bot lane to do so. It's top lane, though, that there's a gank.
As Azaz went in and put Babunya very low, double flash comes out, but Obvious misses the Sonic Wave and can't keep the aggression up onto Babunya under tower.
A little bit of a missed flash there by Obvious, but they get the flash anyway. Babunya is now a lot less safe in lane and potentially could be open to a regank in the next couple of minutes. That does really spell that there's not going to be a lot happening in that bottom lane anytime soon, because look how far Mouth is away. So obviously just a little bit of a mistiming on that wave push for China and Nico in that bottom lane.
Here's a possible opening for End Faculty again now. Now that they've blown that teleport on Babunya, and they know so because they saw it with the minions on that turret, Kassadin still has his, and without a dragon to fight or contest over, they could possibly use that to catch out again an aggressive pushing bottom lane for Tricked.
Yeah, that is something that they could look to do here, but I want to take a bit of a focus on this mid lane. We haven't seen too much from Tyrannus yet. He's been fairly quiet farming up, but he has been picking up those Wraiths, which when you look at the total gold between these two mid laners, even with 2 assists on Ahri, Orianna is still keeping up with her.
Yeah, and you see the combo there, command attack and dissonance, tearing a quarter of Ahri's health away. And when we see a multiple man shockwave, hopefully as far as Tyr is concerned, that's going to tear through people. He's only got that Athene's Unholy Grail at the moment.
Yeah, he is sitting on a bit of gold here, but Culling in the bottom lane.
Culling going out, putting a lot of damage down onto Nico. He's incredibly low, forced to flash as Ceridon after dashing in, and they're happy with that trade. But Nico and Shina, a little bit sloppy. Shina could have tanked a lot of that damage and just let it go, and now they've drawn the attention of Lee Sin.
Yeah, with Lee down in this bottom lane, if Obvious decides to stay, it could actually be a lot more dangerous here because Crescendo is still available, Cataclysm is as well, and Jarvan is in the bottom lane.
Janna gets a 2-man knockup, but they do spot Jarvan just in time to back away before getting any tower aggro, and that's all cancelled without any casualties on both sides. So, a little bit of luck for End Faculty side, a little bit Mouth not hiding in that bush. But Sol's Perfect's using this time that he knows that Mouth is out of the picture to just get us control and to roam a little bit around the other half of the map.
Interesting, though, that Mouth showed himself so early on in that situation. I really think that could have gone very well for Tricked had they let End Faculty into the lane. Taking a look up at top lane, Zazas has picked this into the Maokai, the Kassadin into Maokai, which is something he's been practicing. We know is built slightly towards the later game here on Kassadin, but he's actually losing this matchup fairly heavily. He's 20 CS down, somewhat to be expected from a Kassadin lane, but at the same time, they have to get this pick into the game. Neither top laner has really used their teleport in an aggressive fashion in 16 minutes of the game, and normally we'd have seen that. Luckily for Zazas, we're getting about 1.5 minutes away from the Dragon, so that would be his next opportunity to really start cleaning up the tail end of a team fight. But Tricked can't lose somebody unnecessarily at the beginning of a team fight like they did last time.
And here's something that's not so good on Faculty's playbook either. They were over 1,000 gold in the lead after that first dragon, and it's shrunk now down to 300 gold, 200 gold as that ticks on over. So they're slowly losing in these lane phases just by grabbing these objectives. So this next dragon, if they get it, they need to make it stick. If they don't get it, they could fall very far behind very quickly if they keep going at this rate. Nice little roam up top from Trick's Mouth here, though. Changes his mind before killing the turret, though.
Yeah, I think he kind of read that Zazas was coming back. Zazas actually held his teleport here and used Rift Walk once or twice to get himself towards the lane. So obviously knowing how important this next dragon is in the next 35 seconds, but the vision control actually around the dragon pit is all in favor of Tricked right now. Saying that, Ward did just die, so the teams need to get themselves over there and actually place down a couple of wards.
Something else Tricked have in their favor, well, they don't have the exact time on the Dragon because they couldn't get it last time around. Maokai's teleport is just about going to be back off cooldown and ready for it if they can stall in Faculty out a little way. Do plant a ward over the backside, so they realize it must be soon as in Faculty are starting to stick inside that pit. Charm's going to come out and will catch Mouth, but the damage doesn't actually reach far enough, and Maokai has decided it's time to choke down that top turret. We'll look forward to try and trade with Zaz, of course, wants to keep him as low as possible before any possible teleports come in, but now they're just vying for vision.
Importantly, though, in this top lane, if Zazis is the first to activate his teleport, Maokai can then disrupt it with any of his crowd control and then teleport himself, because Kassadin now really can't stop a teleport. There's not a lot he can do when Maokai decides to try and teleport out of the lane.
Do you see generally Sin at the moment just dancing over that Dragon Pit? They're trying to fight Mauafoth, who is taking a lot of damage from Obvious.
Oh,
the
nice
kick comes out. The Sonic Wave's forcing a flash, but again, Mauath has to recall and can't be a factor in any possible fight here. And then Faculty may have got themselves another Dragon here.
Yeah, this is going to be a Dragon going over to end Faculty, but some kind of miracle steal using Shockwave, but Tyrannus is going to try and line it up.
Sona's coming close with Caitlyn as well. Tyrannus has got the ball over the wall. They're going for it, but Lee Sin is tried and true with his smite.
Yeah, that would have been a difficult one. Shockwave does have a fair animation compared to Smite, and Smite probably has more damage right now at this point, so that would have been very impressive had Tyrannus actually been able to pick that up. But
yeah, would have been a lot of coordination to get that Shockwave and the Piltover Peacemaker and everything lined up on top of each other. But they don't seem to be too worried, do Tricked eSports. They are still within 1,000 gold. They are still happy with their lanes, and that lead, as you mentioned before with Orianna and Ari, is still stretching out there for Orianna. So providing she keeps going and lands some good shockwaves, she's going to be a huge factor in the coming team fights.
Yeah, she really will. And again, this is a teamfight composition out of Tricked, which you can never count out of a game. Even though Tricked are a little bit behind, if they can land the Shockwave into, well, the Cataclysm into Shockwave, and then the follow-up from Caitlyn, they have such presence in teamfights that you can afford to be a couple of 1,000 gold down and still layer that crowd control perfectly.
So, another blue buff for Tyr, just to help his farm game continue on even more. It's actually a couple of slide items behind Ari, but I'm no doubt he's probably sitting on a large chunk of gold in his inventory at 1,300. There we go, Ari just recalled. He may look to grab this mid turret, and the minions may finish it for him. Shockwave goes out, but Obvious flashes it, kicks him back to the turret. Zos Perfect's got the charm forward. Will he land the last hit? Dodges the charm, but Tyrannus has taken so much damage. Mauath comes in to try and finish off Obvious, but he's taken a lot from Zos Perfect. He goes down too late for the teleport, but up comes Nico. Grabs the first kill onto Obvious, but gets charmed into the tower. Can't quite finish it off, but it's still a 2-for-1 trade for Faculty.
But how much did Tricked use there? They used the Cataclysm, the Shockwave, the Crescendo, and it's not over yet.
Babunia is now in trouble. Soz Perfect and Zazos are here. They've got a lot of damage, but he's very tanky. Janna's come up too. Tornado won't hit, but Babunia with a quick twisted advance flash gets out.
Oh man, Tricked are playing this very aggressive here, but they're overstepping the mark. They're using too much for too little in reward, and the gold gap is about the same as it was before that. And it's not really setting Tricked up very well for the next passage of play, because end Faculty are going to start to look for picks here, and Tricked need to group, but there's no point grouping if you don't have all of your ultimates available. So Tricked now for the next minute or so have got to question what their next move has to be.
Honestly, right now, Tricked look like a team that don't have any kind of voice comms. We saw that first blood between Tyrannus and Mauath having a serious miscommunication on when and where to go in and when not to go in. There. Very, very late teleport coming down from Babunia. Tyrannus sitting around in the fight could have just died, but Mauath not realizing that that was a lost cause and going in himself afterwards and also giving up a free kill. Just sloppy, it doesn't seem like there's any clear-cut voice saying yes or no, and they're just waiting that bit too long.
That could be a problem here for Tricked, but one thing that shouldn't be so much of a problem as they go through this is Maokai has been given a fair amount of freedom on what he actually wants to build here. Because he's not up against an AD top laner, he can focus a lot on the magic resist side of his build, and that's going to give him a fairly good time being that front line against a Kassadin and an Ari. Until they start getting the penetration items like a Void Staff, Babunia is going to become a bit of a problem.
Now, we did see a turret going down in the bottom lane there for Tricked, so that's the 3 turrets to 0. That's one of the ways they are, in fact, ahead in gold, despite giving up 2 free dragons and 4 kills. So now they've got a very open map to play with, and as you mentioned, they're a team fight comp. Now with all that space to play with, and to be honest, up to this point, some pretty solid deep warding. Looking for them to group, looking for them to use their team fight comp to start team fights.
And speaking of the warding, let's take a quick look at where the vision lies. A turret falls, so that's going to make the bottom side a little bit less controlled here for Tricked, but Faculty do have a fair amount of vision of the lower side, but nothing very deep yet. That's something to look for.
Do you see Obvious going very deep under that turret looking for Tyradus, but as Nico shows up, scares them back and away again. And Faculty, of course, we mentioned it before, how Trick's lineup's going to love a long, drawn-out game here. They can scale very, very well. And Faculty know this, and they're looking for these more and more aggressive plays. They're going quite deep under that tower.
But they have to make sure that works, because it's one thing that we've seen from teams time and time again is if you're trying to force objectives too early on into the game, if you don't get the picks you want, you don't have the setup to siege the tower and kind of end up just wasting time. You aren't really getting any advantage from it. And Tricked can sit back, wait for the engage, and then counter-engage with all of their crowd control. And that is a pretty difficult thing to fight against when you take into account Crescendo. If you get dived on, it's very difficult to actually sit in front of a team.
Caitlyn down in the bottom lane, just again comfortable on her farm. Between 244 CS to 212, keeping that distance, keeping that separation between herself and Sardinia, despite the fact that neither of them really have left that lane at all. You do see a possible roam, though, coming from Ari up from that mid lane, again looking for an opening on Babunia. They know he's getting uncontrollable, but he's got a good ward place, and he's trading back and forwards onto Xaxus, doing so much damage.
He's doing a lot of damage there, and this Kassadin pick, you have to get roaming. You can't really kill a Maokai in lane. It's just that Maokai doesn't pressure you out in lane enough to actually win against you. So until they get Xaxus across the map, there's not exactly a lot that can happen here, and it's a bit of a questionable decision for him not to actually trade. The teleport is available for Xaxus, though, so this could be the moment where he's looking to teleport in, because they've got a small window where Babunia has to trek it down from the top lane by foot.
So, Tricked have been pushed back and away from this dragon, but are here as a group right now. They are bringing Babunia all the way down without his teleport because it's still on cooldown, but Xaxus has this time now to stay farming top and to use his when he so wishes. But this time we're finally seeing Trick grouped. We're not seeing Mouth getting picked off on his own. The charm won't come out, and they're starting to kill off some of these wards as they're bullying in Faculty back and away. Nice Caitlyn ult coming out just for some free damage, and they've pulled the... Oh, they haven't pulled the dragon, it's a pink ward. Just see Jarvan attacking at the bottom of the screen. What's he up to? As they start clearing out everything that in fact she just worked so hard to place. Now they've pulled the dragon, and Babunia is happy to tank it for a while, killing off every ward that goes down from Faculty, and the culling comes out, not hitting too many people just yet, but Jarvan.
Too early.
This thing goes in very, very soon, but the charm hits Mouth and nukes Jarvan down. Crescendo hits no one, but it's a 3-man shockwave. So much damage coming out from Orianna. Now they're looking to chase him Faculty down. Kassadin hasn't teleported, but he's killed a turret. Sona picks up 1 kill, and they keep chasing onto him Faculty. Over the wall comes Caitlyn to pick up 3. Can she get any of them? The charm lands and takes her low. She got to 1. Finally, the teleport comes in. Shina's not dead, but Lee Sin, Janna, and Ari all fall, and the teleport is cancelled after a triple kill for Orianna.
Xaxus got the tower, but held the teleport so late, he can't clean this team fight up, because look at Babunia's health, who actually is going to teleport in. I thought Obvious went in far too early, but he was relying on Saw's perfect charm to land, and from there, Mouth drops off the map. No ability to compete in that fight, but Faculty dropped far too low from that engage, and Tricked just cleaned up towards the end of that, and they have the numbers advantage the entire fight long, and this is actually quite a large lead when you consider that they didn't even get the dragon from that.
I was going to say, Mouth was another factor. As you mentioned, he died so quickly. Crescendo hit no one. The reason that fight turned so dramatically was all Tyradus on that 3-man shockwave on both Ari, Janna, and Lucian. 3 high-priority squishy targets. Completely won that for Tricked. Next time in Faculty fight, with Mouth actually taking part, with Crescendo hopefully hitting someone, and a shockwave, they got to be terrified. But why did Xaxus not teleport?
I don't know. He's just been reluctant to roam this entire game, and sure, farming on Kassadin is really nice, but kills make for a much better gold efficiency on Kassadin, of course, because we've seen what Kassadin can do once you pick up a couple of kills. He just becomes that late-game monster that can destroy any squishy target. Little bit of curious decision-making out of Zaza. Still not too sure. But I want to take a look at something...
He got a tower, it's okay.
Yeah, I guess he did get a tower, but I just would have liked to have seen him get the tower and then join the fight. But one thing you talked about is how Tricked are building slightly towards the later game here, or at least have picked themselves to it, and they're building that way as well. Caitlyn has gone for a different build than what we've seen in a while. This is a very old-school build, where you get that Phantom Dancer rather than a static Shiv for that. Well, Shiv would give you the wave clear. Phantom Dancer gives you a better late game, gives you that better attack speed, higher crit chance, and just generally means the later this game goes, Caitlyn is going to be able to output a lot more damage than with a static Shiv.
And we also see Babunia grabbing himself a Frozen Heart right after that fight too. So while he was focusing a lot of AP resist, of course, against Ari and Kassadin while in lane, now all that work that Sardunia is trying to do while that Lucian's trying to get through that tanky front line, it's going to be null and void until he can get a last whisper.
It will indeed. You caught me off guard with that one.
Switched it back over to AD Gary. We just see now Faculty having to defend. This is the Trick lineup that right. We're strong. We have our key items. We know we can team fight now. Let's use it to siege. Let's force them to come in and fight to us. Let's rotate around the map and make them come to us. And there is nothing Faculty can do this yet. They don't have that opening. Despite the charms landing, despite the poke hitting, it's all on the big tanky frontline Babunia. He's shrugging it all off, face tanking a tower while it happens, and Caitlyn is completely untouchable right at the back with her huge range.
And not only is her range making her untouchable, the front line she's going to have that sets up when Faculty actually want to engage is so strong and so scary that there's nothing they can really do. But Tyrannus takes a lot of damage here.
Yeah, stepping a bit over the mark. Zazas feels confident enough to blink forward for that one. They do have to back off as Obvious is coming around the side. Tyrannus is still incredibly low, and they have to make sure he survives. He's so huge for their fight, and in Faculty know this. So while he's low, they're chasing them down. Obvious dashing forward, looking for that opening to insec in. Can't quite land the Sonic Wave.
Babunia's positioning, though, as soon as this fight kicks off, if Faculty go for it, Babunia was looking to cut into the middle of the fight, get the Vengeful Maelstrom down, and make sure that Caitlyn can disengage from this fight and turn for the counter-engage. But I'm glad Faculty didn't go for that. Tricked had readjusted to a very nice position.
As soon as they lost vision, as soon as they realized they couldn't figure out what was in that bush, they turned and backed away. And they may have actually nicely out-rotated Tricked here to grab themselves the final out of turret on the map for themselves. That should be a quick kill with everyone there. And that's the third outer turret down then from Faculty. So they're going to have to start planting some slightly deeper wards, and Tricked are going to have to be a little bit more careful in their own jungle once more.
Yeah, and Faculty have, though, put down the wards in Tricked's jungle, just as you were talking about in Mauer.
Mauer straight onto a pingwall, gets nuked down by Faculty, but a quick flash away isn't going to save him. Shockwave comes in on 3, but they aren't there to follow it up, and they can't pick up any revenge kills. Stealth Perfect goes forward, hits the charm on Orianna, and it's a double kill from Faculty. That might just be Baron.
It will be at this point. There's no smite available, and this is the problem with Tricked, is if they're grouped, their team composition is great, but as soon as they split off, Faculty have far superior pick potential, and their mobility allows them to catch up on any low health targets very quickly at the tail end of those scrappy little engages in the jungle. And Faculty, they were on the back foot for a little while, but now with the Baron buff, they've closed a lot of the gold gap, and now they have the aggressive stance, and they're looking perhaps for Babunia.
He has gone a long way down. They can see him in the minions. They've got Janna and Lee Sin coming around behind. Zazas goes in for the slow. Vengeful Maelstrom coming out. Twisted Advance Flash, and he is kicked back to safety because of it. But he has to blow so much, all because he wanted a couple of extra creeps. And the reason that Maueth and Orianna died, we just saw them kill on mid-tower. They walked towards Blue Bath. Oh, what a convenient pink ward. Without planting any of their own wards, without dropping even his flag in a bush to check. Just little bits of sloppy play that you'd hope these kind of teams with this kind of experience would be willing and used to checking for.
Yeah, momentary lapse of judgment by Maueth, but that cost him in the beginning of the game as well, when that the communication wasn't really there. Maueth's walking towards the dragon, looking for some kind of constellation here, but look at the rest of Faculty looking to close in. This is kind of a repeat from earlier when Obvious is looking to get here and steal away, but the rest of the team is not there yet. Zazas and Babunia have teleport. This dragon is going down slowly. Who's going to get the smite here?
Ari Cassidy and Lucian a long way out. Jarvan picks it up and flags and drags back over the wall before the rest of faculty show up. Tense moments for both teams, but Trick get themselves that 1,000 gold, keep the goal lead for now, but have 4 minutes with this Baron buff, where yes, they're a team by team, yes, they are strong, but they can't put up within faculty's burst potentially. You've just got to hide, just got to wait and make sure you're grouped the entire time, because these guys can come out of nowhere. With the amount of blinks and the amount of gap closers they have on just Lee Sin, Ari and Kassadin alone, they're going to come over walls and back, left and right. Babunia did just teleport that way.
Well, I guess
they saw them going topside, and they did catch him there before. It is quicker than a recall, so yeah, better safe than sorry at this stage in the game.
Yeah, agreed. It was smart to get back, but this is just a product of not having vision in the top side of their jungle. If you're forced,
or the bottom side,
they
haven't got any vision.
Exactly. If you're forced to use a massive cooldown like teleport just to save 4 seconds on your recall, that's not a good spot to be in. Like that is a major part of Tricked's composition that is not going to be able to be in the team fights, because Kassadin is probably going to drop over to a side lane with teleports still available here. And then from there, Babunia has to sit in front of him and basically let him teleport away when there's a team fight.
Yeah, we'll see, in fact, looking to do it all over again. Yes, there's a couple of wards in that top half of the jungle for the Tricked, but they're so deep in their own side that in fact they aren't even going that far in. There's one that's spotting them as they run around blue, and the other two aren't doing anything for them. So they still don't know exactly where faculty are, but they've had a couple of saplings, they've seen a couple of people walking in and out, they've got a rough idea, so they are playing this very safe. Now you can see all 5 of their icons stacked on top of each other, staying close to the turrets, rotating as a group, making sure they make no opportunity for faculty to grab one of them exposed.
Faculty are going to have to look a lot harder for opportunities when it comes to the inhibitor turrets, though. That is going to be a stalling point for Tricked. Yes, the inner towers are still there, and they're difficult enough to take as it is, but look at the wave clear here on Tricked. Caitlyn can wave clear from afar. Orianna has good wave clear from a distance, and faculty are a fairly short-range team. Remember, Lucian, a good few patches ago, had his range decreased. Ari isn't the highest range champion either. Lee Sin and Kassadin are melee, so they have to really step forward to try and get any kind of objectives. This is all on Tricked getting caught out when they really shouldn't do, is what let faculty into this game.
And you see, the response from faculty, of course, there was to use Lee Sin and Kassadin to split push another lane instead, because as you mentioned, they can't get onto one turret of their own. And as a result, it's exposed Shiner, and then he has to take a lot of damage from that culling and forces Sona to come and heal him up. But they're slowly splitting Tricked up by doing this, by pushing the opposite lane, by dancing backwards and forwards between the jungles. They're keeping them open, and one time too many, when one person that isn't Babunia takes one of these charms, that could be all faculty need.
Yeah, Tyrannus isn't confident enough on dodging the charms by the look of it to step forward and actually wave clear with the ball, so he's relying on using Babunia and Mouth to do it for him, and they don't have the strong wave clear. And here's faculty just saying, okay, inner tower is easy enough for us to take down like this. Again, inhib towers are going to be far more difficult to do that way.
It looks like Tricked have actually given up on the top tier 2 and bottom tier 2 as well. They're just happy to sit right back and wait inside their own bases. They know they're going to have a hard time eventually with this constant split push and the constant backwards and forwards. They know that they're going to have so much of a better chance inside their base on these inhibitor turrets. So why not? It's a couple of 1,000 gold at this point in the game. That's a small factor. So they are willing to drop back and wait for this. The Baron buff has worn off, and in fact, the Baron itself will respawn in 2 minutes' time. You can see this response from faculty. Base, get more items, get more wards, spend the gold they just got, and then this is going to come down to, again, both teams and our famous European Baron dance.
Ah, yes, the old Baron dance. But luckily for Tricked, they can set up the vision pretty well here. They have to be careful.
Can they defend?
Yeah, that's the problem. They're lucky that they can set it up without running into anybody from faculty because if they had to back, but Tricked aren't really aware. They're doing a lot of guesswork here. They do not want to put any wards on this side of the map where Obvious is walking here. You want to get some wards at least aggressively when you're trying to control a Baron pit, because now they're about to lose all sense of vision, and they didn't even have time to react to defend this.
Especially when you've got an Orianna.
Yeah.
You put a ward right here in the corner next to the red buff, you see everyone choking their way down in towards that little river entrance, and you shockwave them.
Yeah.
It would have been perfect, would have been lovely for them, but they have no idea to know when Faculty were coming that way because they were too scared to go in and do it. They had no idea when Faculty were, and it had been so long since they'd seen them, they figured something was up.
Yeah, and it's Faculty just working very well with their trinkets. All of their red trinkets have been picked up and are, and have been used here. So they're waiting on a little bit more time before they can clear out some of these wards. But they do have pink wards in their inventory as well. So good vision control already from
Babunia may have been focused on. In fact, Lee Sin was looking for it. It's coming out from the red buff as Lucian chased him up the lane. But they didn't quite have enough to get on top of him this time around. But again, it's just that opening. Faculty wedging themselves in between the Tricked lineup, going in the jungle rather than in the lanes, and looking for one person that's just a step over for the edge. There were 3 wards here, at least, for Tricked, not a minute ago. And as we mentioned, they can't defend them. And Faculty have complete control, and the Barons come up in 2 seconds. There is that one ward that's just got the edge of the pit. So now that it's up, Tricked are going to have a rough idea. So they do know they're not in that bush. They do know they're hiding around a corner somewhere because they can see the edge of the pit. But now they're waiting for their moment. They are all grouped. They're all as 5, but they've got to come through a very tight choke point here to get even close to Faculty. And it's going to be very, very dangerous as to who hits that charm. It should be Babunia that takes it first, but we do see him going in. Teleport coming in behind from Babunia. Zoz Perfect has to use his charges defensively. All comes out from Caitlyn for free damage, and the Culling's completely wasted too. So that's 2 ultimates down on Faculty for nothing so far.
Yeah, Tricked come out way ahead on the ultimate counter on that one, and that very much so bodes well in favor of Tricked, but they've started Baron. I'm not actually keen on this.
That's a very confident Baron start. They're taking it down pretty slowly. It's half health, but they're going to have to be careful now as Lee Sin is looking for that smite, of course. He's looking around one edge, got that Sonic Wave up. We just see a charm hits onto Sona. In fact, she's going to get burst. Shockwave hits Ari though, and she's quickly down as well. 2 people dead, 1 for either side, as Babunia focusing in onto Seridan, but Shine is exposed for Lee Sin and Kassadin. They're going to focus him down, but kill from Baron before Shiner will fall. Zazas has to turn and run as Mauer is there to chase him, but Tyrius was untouched, and Tricked come out on top.
That was a lot of ultimates used before the fight, and Tricked managed to set it up. Zazas
takes a full burst. Now he has to leave and give up that Baron to Tricked. But that fight was a mess.
It was. It was a very scrappy fight there, to the point that Shiner was forced to pretty much 1v2 in that situation, and then Baron comes across
very
for
much, yeah.
a 1v3 at that point. So Baron wasn't quite sure who he wanted to side with, but ended up falling. In the end, though, Tricked have picked up the Baron. They got the better team fight there, and that is really making Tricked's game a lot stronger right now, because Faculty are on the back foot. Tricked have the heavy engage composition and can siege towers very easily with Caitlyn from here, so we expect Tricked to stay somewhat grouped and look for more tower pressure.
So, Babunia and Mauer grab that free dragon, of course, when everyone was respawning. Vision is still very much in Faculty's favor. Despite all of that, Tricked have just barged their way in through wards regardless because of their sheer brute force, dropped 1 or 2 wards of their own, and walked on out again. They haven't actually focused on taking away any in Faculty vision or really gaining any of their own. They're just barging their way through the vision they know already to be there, and if they keep doing this, it could very well be their downfall. They need to start using these sweepers a bit better, need to start taking away the in-Faculty vision, because then they can be the ones catching people out of vision, then they can be the ones using that surprise burst, because they do have a lot of damage.
Yeah, they have so much upfront damage in these team fights, but they have to separate Tricked. You've talked about how they've been wedging themselves in between the lineup. Get the front line away from the high damage champions. You're looking at Shiner, you're looking at Tyrius, but look at the Banshee's Veils out already. That's going to make charming either of them very difficult here, but Howling Gale can be used to just take away that Banshees for now.
Yeah, we noticed Tyrius was very aggressive on that turret while he had his Banshees, happy to auto-attack it away, but the second the tornado landed, he's now right at the back of his team. He will not go onto those stairs.
Yeah, exactly. But look at Babunia just face-tanking up. I don't think that's necessary, and the damage they take in return, although the culling is a big part of their wave clear, Nico is now fairly low, so the positioning has to be careful here, but Tricked are going to look to push here.
Babunia's dancing around in front, making sure he's ready to try and grab that charm or whatever else comes his way. Looks the Vengeful Maelstrom up, happy to stand there, and Tangled comes out as the tower's very low and in downing to instead. They go straight in onto Ari. The Shockwave missed completely, but Ari's incredibly low. Lee Sin's there. Crescendo hits 2 onto Xaxus, and he's now been exhausted. Caitlyn does so much damage with every attack, and then Faculty have to give up the inhib.
Even with the Shockwave missing, Tricked still have so much damage on Shiner right now, who has had a very quiet game, but has been farming up so strong right now. Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer, and Last Whisper, another BF sword, means that Caitlyn can just sit undamaged at the back of the fight. Doesn't really even need the front line at that point, because nobody can even dive past. So Shiner, I don't know how you deal with this without Soz Perfect having some really flashy play and just landing a charm out of nowhere.
Yeah, and when you've got to get past that Maokai Jarvan combo, and that Shockwave has been focused on Ari every time, it's why it's so hit and miss, because of course she can dodge it so easily. But the fact is, if she's using her ultimate defensively to get away from Shockwaves, she's not getting any close to Caitlyn. And that, at this point in the game, with a build like that, is all the Tricked really need, because Shiner is destroying anyone she can get close to.
I feel like that team fight was almost to do with the culling being used so early. I think Tricked could have been deterred for another wave had that culling been held for a teeny little bit and then pushed into the wave to make sure that there were no minions there with them. Babunia is pretty tanky at the moment as well. It's just a timing thing that the culling typically is saved for wave clear rather than chipping down damage onto a support who's going to heal it up anyway.
Especially now that the culling has the longer cooldown than before as well, so it's even more vital when you pick your moments to use that on creeps or onto champions. Well, you do see Faculty kind of flailing a little bit now. They cannot take these 5v5s. They know it, and Tricked are not giving them an option to take anything, but they are staying grouped and they're just barging their way in lane by lane, as you can see, and they know, and Faculty saw them killing the minions, they know they're all coming up this bottom lane now. They've got to try and think of some other option. They've got to try and get around these edges, but Tricked are finally planting their pink wards and using their sweepers as they go and making sure they know where their flanks are covered.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Lucian change with the culling. An extra 40 seconds on the cooldown of rank 3 is a massive change, and we haven't honestly seen the Lucian in a defensive situation this late into the game to see how that has changed his ability to deter people from turrets. There's a lot of damage coming out right now from Tricked, but Faculty for now we're doing a decent job of wave clearing, but you have to feel like it's going to be made a lot more difficult when those super minions start pushing through the mid lane, and Faculty have to try and find a pick here, or Tricked are just going to full-on engage again.
Babunia is again just dancing on the front. He's taken quite a lot of poke, to be honest, in this last fight, but just shrugged it off. He's back at full health with no time at all, and of course, just stand on the edge of this turret range, tank up a couple of shots, and let Caitlyn get a 1 or 2 more shots off onto the tower itself, slowly whittling it down. All the while, Soz Perfect is trying effortlessly over and over again to land a charm onto someone important, but just can't quite get through anyone. Tyradus is getting knocked up, and that's a lot of damage. Does go down onto many members of Trick there, so they have to fall back a little bit further this time around. Play a little bit more cautiously for one more wave. They do have a cannon creep coming their way, though, and that may be the trigger they need.
Yeah, that would be a good sign. We're late into the game now, so any wave that lasts that little bit longer is far better for standing in front of a turret. But Charm has landed.
Ari does stand on a trap too, and if that Charm hadn't, Babunia would have twisted advanced and caught Soz Perfect out. He's in on another trap, but this time they're far more distant to make sure they're close. But it does mean Soz Perfect burned his Spirit Rush.
Taking a look at Babunia's items, even though he's against double AP, Babunia has picked up a Thorn Mail because I assume he feels like he's got enough magic resist now that Lucian's the only one doing damage to him, and Tricked, there's the engage!
Tyradus gets kicked in, he has to Zhonya's immediately, but obviously it's taken incredibly low. First one down is Lee Sin. Maweth gets a 3-man Cataclysm off. Shockwave only hits Mountain, but with the turret already dead, now it's all up to Shiner. Xaxus manages to get in and out again without taking too much, but Babunia is low. The Shockwave, sorry, not the Shockwave, the Orianna Dissonance will finish off Xaxus, but 2 members of Tricked are standing, and they have to turn tail and run because 3 members of Faculty are still up.
And with 6 seconds until the Baron spawns, will we perhaps see Faculty head over there? They don't really have anybody that can contest apart from Shiner. The other option is to push here. They have to try and deter the super minions in the middle wave, but I don't actually think Faculty know or really have many options available. They don't really know what their options are right now because they don't feel comfortable enough to do Baron. They don't feel comfortable enough to do Dragon. So that's just a pause button.
It is a, all right, small win, but still a full war to fight here in this situation. Don't have the time to run the whole way of the map. We still have to deal with super creeps. We've got jungles to farm. We've got creeps to farm in each lane. Cool off, calm down, a little bit of a respite. Try and get some wards out again. Try and get some vision control around. The Baron just came back up. Janna is there with her wards, with her pinks, with her sweepers, making sure they can see when and where Tricked are coming from. And maybe this is the opportunity they can use. We saw how scrappy that last Baron fight was. We saw how Trick don't necessarily have the best position for it. And in fact, going to try and rush it down. We saw Caitlyn was mid. And in fact, they might have just pulled this off. There's 3 members of Trick's back in their base still. And this is going down very, very quickly. Babunia's teleporting in. Maweth is there, but the Baron is already dead. And they just have to disengage. Charm hits Babunia, but all 5 members are Tricked in here. They might have enough damage to nuke down the tank. But Shiner's there now. Kick doesn't go in the right direction. Shockwave on 2! Obvious amount in a pulled in, but a disengage comes out from Janna. Dash forward from the last Spirit Rush on, so it's perfect. But in Faculty disengage, no casualties, but they got the Baron.
They get the Baron. The inhib has respawned as well, so N-Faculty are turning the tides on this game. The teleport in early was very smart out of N-Faculty. It meant that Kassadin was there to lay down the damage onto Maweth as he wanted to come into the fight, so N-Faculty setting up their 5v4 far quicker than Tricked could actually respond, and Shockwave didn't do as much damage as perhaps you'd expect it to this late into the game, even though Orianna is currently set at 421 farm with 4 kills. So there is a lot of resistance currently on the side of N-Faculty, and they're back on the aggressive. Look at this positioning down in the bottom lane. They know they're a little bit safe here, but they are 5v4 for the next couple of seconds.
They're looking for someone to come to this big wave of creeps. Where are they? What? Cast some minions, please.
It's not happening. Like, Babunia is here, but
no, he played that very safe. We saw a couple of times before how far down the lane he'd go, but he stopped doing that now. He's playing so incredibly cautious and waits for the minions to come all the way up to him. But Maweth is top and is heading towards another large creep wave. If he goes down to meet that one, that could be in Faculty's queue to go and dive onto Babunia. They know he's exposed and open, but he is still that big, incredible tank that could take a long time to kill. They've decided it's time to move out of that bush, but means they've split up slightly because actually Soul's Perfect stayed in the lane.
He did, but overall, N-Faculty perhaps just wasted a third of their Baron buff. I don't know whether you want to call that, you know, a setup for something that just didn't happen, but I would call that wasted time on a very important buff like Baron here that they could have been looking to just make sure mid lane is pushing. It's not pushed into the inhibitor turret, so at this point it's not providing them any pressure on the map. Top lane has forced somebody to go over and deal with it, and they could have been setting up a little bit better for this next passage of play, but they recall.
They know they can't get into those inhibitor turrets straight up 5v5 siege or even 5v4 siege while Orianna's top. They can't break that door down. So as soon as that's their only option, they have to back away and farm the jungles and look for another opening, which they're not going to find for quite some time because Tricked have no problem just sitting in their base for another 10-20 minutes if that's what it comes to.
And that's actually a very strange situation for us to be in, because Baron buff or Baron not being alive gives Tricked no incentive to leave their base. So it's almost a negative factor for N-Faculty that they took an uncontested Baron, because they didn't get any picks off it, couldn't build any momentum. And yes, they've got the Baron buff for regen, but they don't have a sieging composition that great. So it's a very obscure situation we find ourselves in.
Now, Tricked could, of course, opt to throw this away
if
they want to go and rush down an inhibitor and be all crazy.
That's always a
they have
factor.
certainly composed themselves a lot more and gone down the old CLGU route, just sitting in their base for an 8-hour best-of-3 series.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Whatever the case, however long it takes for this next fight to take place, it's going to be explosive when it does. But with every extra jungle creep, with extra lane creep that N-Faculty take, they're going to get that little bit more survivability against the Shockwave, against the initial tank and the upfront from Maweth and Babunia. We saw in that last fight how Babunia went very, very low, in all fairness, once all 5 members in Faculty were able to get onto him. And he's still going very deep in these fights. So with every little creep they get, with every extra item, he's going to be able to tank a little bit less of their damage. So it is going to change the way that Tricked have to team fight. Question is, are they going to be prepared for it after waiting, basically doing nothing for so long?
That is a very big question that we have to see answered. And Soz Perfect is taking a bit of damage, but everybody has a fair amount of resistances right now, so nothing really to write home about. Difference in AD carry builds once again. Lucian has picked up a Guardian Angel. It's to do with the fact that he's a lot closer into the fight, and he wants to be always getting that passive off, so has to, you know, dart in and around, use his abilities, and make sure he's getting the most out of his damage, whereas Caitlyn, in her base, is just going to be sat even further back, so has extra lifesteal, has the shield, and that little bit extra damage from the Bloodthirster as well is just that difference between having that massive range AD carry and that slightly shorter, more mobility-focused carry that Lucian is.
I'd like to see in Faculty move their pink wards right now. There's two sitting around Baron that aren't doing a whole lot. One here, maybe where Janna's standing in that pathway, would help them control the outer edge of this without using sweepers so much. One on the other side, perhaps, doing a similar thing, because they are doing a good job right now of dancing from lane to lane and just keeping Tricked going from lane to lane as well. And that's the opportunity, when Tricked is doing that they could land a charm over the wall. They could catch that person as they rotate out of position. That's what they were looking for, but they need the kind of vision control to do that. So I think better pink placement might help.
I think, though, to that factor, that would have been very useful a couple of minutes ago. But with Baron coming up again in a minute and a half, those Baron pinks are going to be very useful for this next passage of play.
Yes, but right. I waited a while to say the point.
Exactly.
Well, in fact, Zazza's actually being traded onto by Babunia, and this has opened up an opportunity for Obvious to come down, but he's still so tanky with all those armor items that he just blows the ultimate. Ari caught out, however, has to use the Zhonya's to dodge the Caitlyn off, but the shockwave goes off. They do blow a lot to kill her, though. But what a Trick going to do with this? They have killed a very high focus target in Faculty.
Baron is up in 1 minute. This gives them the position and even the timing to go straight up mid for the inhibitor. They've only just recalled Tyrannus. Oh, the missed Zhonya's. I don't know why you're pressing the two key right there.
He has nothing to. He was probably looking to dissonance and speed them all up, but fat fingered 2 instead of W.
No. That could be a massive factor here. They should get the inhib without that becoming a factor, but
and the bottom one as well, because they're both exposed. But if his Zhonya's isn't back up in time for what could be a Baron fight afterwards, maybe we'll see how they do it. But 2 inhibitors is going to slow from Faculty down by so much. They cannot leave their base anymore, and Tricked are going to be able to come in and bully them off with brute force again. We saw them try to do it so much out on the map. Now they've got super creeps backing them up. They could just come and bully down the Nexus turrets. The Baron is almost certainly free unless in Faculty go for one last-ditch Hail Mary.
Still 12 seconds on Soz Perfect, and obviously from the mid lane doesn't have a teleport here, so he has to cross manually over to this Baron pit. They clear out the pink wards.
4 members of Faculty are close.
No Zhonya is still available though for Tyrannus. That could be a massive factor here. Zazas is going to position it. Baron is dropping very low here. Can Obvious steal?
Goes in, but can't get the smite off. Maweth picks it up. Obvious is very low. Will in fact fall very quickly. Now Mountain's being chased. Zazas has to blink away. Flash forward and the crescendo's back up. Mountain's caught out and will be the next focus. He does fall down. Tricked being slowed from behind by Zazas, but Soz Perfect's there with a charm to catch Babunia. Still 3 very high damage members up, but Shiner's exposed. Soz Perfect looks to try and pick him off, but can't do the damage. Caitlyn comes out. His Zhonya's is back up, but Maweth is going to be there to finish him. But down in the bottom lane, they've looked to put Lucian and Zazas to try and counter push. They're already killing 1 inhibitor, but there are 5 members of Trick back up in their own base who are already on the Nexus turret. Babunia's come back. Sidonia is tanking a turret, taking a lot of damage, but he does have a GA. They might get 1 turret. They have before Trick do, but Trick to finish 1 of their own. Sidonia is tanking. He's going to fall down to the Guardian Angel, but that's the Nexus turret going down. Number 2 for Tricked eSports. They're going to be onto the Nexus, and it will be Tricked eSports taking game number 1 in this incredible start for a best of 3.
What an explosive end to that series, and for everybody